Welcome to the No Sugarcoating Podcast. I am Amber Romaniuk, emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert. I am also the founder of amberapproved.ca. I support professional women achieve optimal health through mindful eating, self-care, and overcoming self-sabotage with food. This podcast provides the honest truth on what you really need to create body freedom. The No Sugarcoating Podcast provides information on healthy living, lifestyle changes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. Always seek the advice of your healthcare practitioner regarding your health and nutrition program. Hi guys, happy episode 220. Can you believe it's 220? And it's the end of January. I can't believe the first month of the year is almost over. How are you guys doing? I hope that you're enjoying the first month of 2020 and the new decade. This week's topics are actually all inspired by questions that I got on my Instagram stories. So every Tuesday, I go on my Instagram stories and I ask you what kind of health related topics would you like to potentially hear me talk about on the podcast or Instagram stories. And a couple of weeks ago, I had quite a few women talk about or ask about different digestive symptoms or digestive things. So I thought, why not, bring them all together because they're all quite related and make a podcast out of it. So thank you for all of you who listen and follow me on Instagram and who share, because often it's I have certain things I want to talk about, and hearing from you guys is so huge, of course, because I want to cater to and provide you with the content that you want. And of course, a lot of these things I've dealt with as well. So this week I'm talking about struggling with irritable bowel syndrome, dealing with digestive sensitivities, and getting to the roots of your digestive issues. So I'm super, super excited to dive right in. So a friendly reminder, you can listen to the end of the podcast for all of the show notes. I just want to highlight a couple of key things. So of course, the show notes for today's episode can be found at amberapproved.ca /podcast/220. Be sure to subscribe to the No Sugarcoating Podcast on all podcast apps. You can also click the link right in the show notes to go to subscribe, but all of your favorite podcast apps will have the podcast available. And make sure that you stay tuned to get all the details to enter the giveaway, the worldwide giveaway to win a gift card to your favorite spa wherever you live. It's a $150 gift card. So make sure that you stay to the end for the details so that you can enter, because it's just so fun to think of winning a $150 gift card to go to your favorite spa. It's my gift to you so you can take some time for your self-care. So if you're finding a specific eating style isn't working for you, you're struggling with emotional eating, food addiction, digestive issues, which I'm going to be talking a lot about today, inflammation, perhaps you suspect your hormones are off, your sleep is off, your self-care continues to be a struggle, you are overwhelmed with all the information out there about health and well-being and weight and, energy levels and diet and nutrition, and you're fighting with your body, with your weight, and you just are overwhelmed and you don't know where to start. Well, welcome all my friends who've been with me for a long time. Welcome to new listeners. So excited to have you all here with me because I'm going to continue to dive into the habits and mindsets to set you on a different path. Amber Approved offers private coaching for hormonal imbalances, weight loss and digestive issues, emotional eating, and more. Contact Amber at amberapproved.ca to book your 30-minute complimentary consultation today. So let's dive right in. Struggling with irritable bowel syndrome. So some of you may know this, but a lot of you may not, because I don't think I've really talked about it a lot in depth before. But I remember when I had first graduated high school and I was 18 and I moved away from Barrhead. So it's I lived at home for 18 years, small town, not a lot of stress. And I moved to Calgary, Alberta to go to SAIT, the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, to take broadcast news, to be on TV. And a few months into school, I started getting a lot of bloating and digestive pain and cramping and digestive kind of a burning feeling. And I never had digestive issues beforehand, which is so surprising considering how much junk food I ate all the time. And so I guess I'm just grateful that it didn't catch up with me sooner. But I started to get all these digestive symptoms. And of course, at that time, what do? I go to my doctor and tell them my symptoms, and I get diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. And they said to me, yeah, you're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life, and you're going to just have to navigate your symptoms. So don't eat anything with caffeine or spicy foods. and, maybe limit your gluten intake. And at the time, like gluten-free, or like I didn't really even know what gluten was. So they just said eat less bread. And it was just kind of like, okay, I don't really know what to do. At that point, I was like just too attached to food and didn't really care how certain foods made me feel. So even if I ate something and it gave me a stomachache, I just was too attached to it to not have it. I didn't know about alternatives. I wasn't aware of how food and my emotions and stress could have a negative impact on my physical state of health, my digestive system. So at the time, I really wasn't very eager or motivated to do anything about it. But upon reflecting back, it's kind of like, well, what took me from having no digestive symptoms all of a sudden to this diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome? Well, I think there was obviously a lot of big changes that happened, like moving from living with my parents for 18 years, all of a sudden having my own apartment, living in a big city of over 1 million people, like not knowing anybody, having a very intensive school schedule, full-time schedule. Now I'm shopping for myself for groceries and I'm buying like whatever I want. So I'm eating very poorly, drinking lots of alcohol, with my college friends and going out, being 18 and going to the bars and all that stuff, and having much higher stress levels, having to take a lot of antibiotics. I think there's a lot of things that added up and snowballed very quickly that then, started to give me these digestive symptoms. So I wanted to just share that with you first, but fast forward, I no longer have these digestive symptoms. In fact, I don't really, and this is just my opinion, so take it for what it's worth, but I don't really believe in irritable bowel syndrome. I think it's like a pool of symptoms that, when we're experiencing these different symptoms and they don't really know necessarily what to do with it, that they'll like plop this diagnosis. I may be wrong about that, but I just find so many other people that I talk to, they share, oh yeah, I got IBS, but I don't, know how to navigate it. And like, I don't want to have to deal with it forever. Like, how do I change it? How do I resolve it? And having going through it myself, what I want to do is kind of dissect what some of the most common quote unquote symptoms are and what I believe for myself, again, my opinion, what I believe through my experience and my schooling and education and expertise is actually at the root of the IBS. And I don't think it's IBS. I actually think it's a series of different symptoms and imbalances through our digestive organs, and some other aspects as well, which I'll talk more about, which are contributing to your symptoms, which then, with doctors maybe get diagnosed as IBS. But what if instead you actually just had this series of imbalances that needed to be addressed, one by one and supported, and that if you address them without, having to go on a crazy restrictive diet or like, do certain eating styles, like I know some people feel like they have to go low carb or FODMAP, or they get a bunch of food sensitivity testing done and have to cut out like 30 things. Like, I just don't think it's realistic unless you have a very severe condition or illness where you have to do something very extreme to like combat it or get better. That's a completely different circumstance, but I'm talking about like the everyday individual who all of a sudden has some symptoms and now is either being told you have to cut out a bunch of stuff or go on this diet, or you're going to have to just deal with it for the rest of your life. Like, I just don't think those answers aren't good enough, and they're not proactive / they don't help me get to the root as to why did you end up with the symptoms in the first place. It didn't just magically appear out of nowhere. So I'm hoping today what I can do is give you some clarity around, some of why I think this happens and things we can do to start to change it, because I work with my clients all the time with different digestive issues. Obviously, I went through significant digestive issues after my food addiction, and the body is always trying to heal. It's just that we're getting in the way, because if I could heal my digestion after the destruction that I put myself through with my food addiction, like anything is possible. So some of the most common potential signs and symptoms of IBS, quote unquote, are abdominal pain, cramping, bloating. Sometimes it can be relieved by having a bowel movement, but sometimes not, because if you eat certain foods and then you notice you get bloated or have pain and cramping right away, the foods could be like fueling agitation or inflammation. Excess gas, diarrhea or constipation or abnormal bowel movements can be a sign of IBS. And I had a lot of pain, bloating, cramping, and sugar cravings. And I noticed the more sugar, wheat, and dairy I ate, or the more alcohol I drank, the worse my symptoms got. And again, I had to take a lot of my antibiotics growing up because I had quite a few UTIs from a very young age. Like, I remember having a UTI when I was around the age of 4. And I would get them almost every year, if not multiple times a year. And then, of course, what do? You get put on antibiotics, but it doesn't really resolve, the core issue. And sometimes we need antibiotics because you don't want an infection to get worse. But then those antibiotics kill all the good and bad bacteria in the large intestine and throw the gut flora off, and that compromises your digestive state. But I think that, whether or not you've had a diagnosis of IBS or you're just dealing with any kind of abdominal pain, cramping, bloating, etc., this doesn't necessarily mean you have IBS. So I am not, nor can I diagnose, but I can say different symptoms could just be signs of digestive imbalance. I like to refer to, these symptoms as digestive imbalance, and that if there are imbalances going on in the digestive system, we have to address them. The other thing that happened to me as an aside is sometimes I'd get very severe abdominal bloat for like 8 to 10 days straight. Sometimes it would last for up to 2 weeks, and it didn't matter how well I ate. Like I would just puff out like I was 8 months pregnant. And I had to go to the hospital multiple times, and they did ultrasounds, and sometimes it was that I had a really bad UTI, but other times my appendix was swollen or had kind of flared up and was very angry, and they debated, giving me surgery and getting it out. And finally, after this happening multiple times, February 2013, I woke up and I had that pain. And so of course I go to the hospital because you never know if it's appendicitis. And my appendix was like so swollen. It was full of scar tissue and like calcifications and all this stuff. And I just was like, I think it's time to get it taken out. I know, I've been told, and it's an important part of the immune system, and it's important, for your digestion, but it was causing so much bloating and digestive discomfort. So I got it out. The doctor agreed or said it would be a good idea. And, after they took it out and did the biopsy on it or whatever and looked at it, like it was just in such rough shape. And what was so good, and I'm so glad that I trusted my gut on this call, was after getting my appendix out, I never got that like 8 to 12 day bloating again. Like that fully went away, and I never got that severe bad pain. So I think my appendix was actually bothering me for quite a while. But I also think the binge eating was stressing out my digestive system, which was then agitating my appendix. I think everything was connected in that sense. But that was just my experience. But I know like if you're having significant symptoms and they're not going away and you're not happy with like the advice or the direction you've been told to take, often I find that a different approach is needed, or we need to dig deeper. So often they say that like they'll like, say that muscle contractions and the nervous system and inflammation, gut flora imbalances, and changes in the bacteria in the gut can contribute to, you creating this IBS, these different symptoms. But what we want to talk about is really like, what is at the root of all of this? So I really want to address the nervous system first. So our nervous system, it's like we're programmed from the primal caveman days. We're meant to have, a stressor happen. So it's like, say a bear comes along and then you produce a stress response to get away or protect yourself. And then you move out of fight or flight back into rest and digest. But the problem is we are dealing with stress 24/7, 7 days a week, between what we're putting in our bodies, traffic, work, overbooked schedules, giving to everyone else and saying no to yourself, doing too much exercise, not doing enough, overworking, undereating, overeating, right? Like, our bodies are in such a heightened state of stress that our nervous systems go into overdrive. So we're supposed to be in this parasympathetic state most of the time. And instead we're in the opposite state where it's like fight or flight, stress response, and we produce more cortisol. And when we have these, heightened or overactive nervous systems and we're producing more cortisol, and we have more cortisol in our bloodstream, our body becomes more sensitive, and our digestive system can experience a greater level of discomfort because there's poorly coordinated signals happening between the brain and the intestines. Gut-brain connection is very, very strong. And then this can contribute to your digestive system overreacting with your digestive process and giving you bloating, pain, diarrhea, constipation. It's often if you were really stressed when you ate and then you get discomfort, that's a sign of that nervous system overactive fight or flight response. But when we have all this stress and, we start having digestive symptoms, if we don't address the stress, it's very unlikely that the digestive symptoms will go away. So we can try taking supplements, we can try, prescriptions or whatever is given, or you can try the really restrictive diet. But until you address your schedule and your stressors and your negative beliefs and thoughts and, fears and worries and whatever you are struggling with, you will probably still end up getting some form of symptoms, because what I noticed when I was kind of in the end of getting digestive symptoms, it wasn't food or like any of the particular digestive organs that were contributing to my symptoms. It was emotion. So if I get really angry or really sad or really worried or fearful, then I'd get bloated and it would flare up. So it wasn't even food anymore. So I really believe in this whole fight or flight nervous system response, and that it is important for us to address stress. Like stress fuels so many symptoms in the body, not just digestive stressors. You've heard me talk about hormones. It obviously is a trigger for emotional eating. For some people, then they can't eat, right? It impacts your sleep. It can impact your weight, and you can gain weight more easily. So it's so important that we do address our stress. Another aspect of, this digestive discomfort or this IBS is inflammation. So instead of just saying, oh, well, you have inflammation, it's like, yeah, but why do you have inflammation? So different hormone imbalances, stress, a poor functioning immune system, mindless eating, overeating, emotional eating, food addiction, any form of emotional relationship with food will stress out your digestive system eventually, and then you can end up with higher levels of inflammation in the body, and especially in the digestive tract. So eating too quickly, eating poor quality food regularly, feeling stressed while you're eating. What ends up happening is the more stressed we are regularly, the more of a fight or flight response we're in, the more inflamed our intestinal lining becomes. Also, if we're not chewing our food properly, of course, digestion starts in the mouth, and if we're not chewing properly and we're swallowing really big amounts and we're drinking too many liquids with our meals, which is an aside, drinking a lot of liquids with your meals is not a good idea because you do not digest as well. Dilute your stomach acid, which is important for protein digestion. So it's actually good to drink the majority of your liquids away from your meals. And I know my clients, when they start to make changes with their habits, this makes a big difference. But, if we don't start with good digestion in the mouth by chewing properly, and we're stressed and then we're drinking all these liquids, by the time it gets to our stomach and we're not able to break it down properly in the stomach, too big of particles are going into the small intestine. We're not able to absorb nutrients properly, and these particles are hitting your intestinal wall, agitating it, and then eventually it becomes compromised because there's too much inflammation. The quality of the food, prescription drugs, just all these little stressors agitate the lining to the point where, microscopic holes can get poked, and then there's bits of food going into the bloodstream, and the immune system goes, that's foreign, that's not supposed to be here, and it attacks it. And then we end up with more inflammation. We end up with overactive immune systems or underactive, where you're catching colds and flus, and it's taking you, quite a while to get over them. You may find yourself sick all the time. You might find yourself bloated and really sensitive no matter what you eat or how well you try to eat. One girl said, I'm eating less wheat and dairy and I'm eating more vegetables, but I'm still getting bloating. And I'll kind of talk more to that in my second point, but this is all related. Like if we don't address, what could be the leaky gut, the compromised, intestinal lining, the stress, the low stomach acid, and not chewing your food properly and practicing mindful eating, like there's just this cascade of unfortunate events that leads to these imbalances. And it's so innocent. Like we don't even realize, not chewing properly or drinking all the liquids or eating and watching TV, like the significant negative impact that could have on our digestion. And then we wonder why we're so sensitive. So, it's so important that we understand, where this inflammation is coming from and what habits, what foods are inflammatory that may be contributing, hormone imbalances that may be contributing, and other aspects of gut health that may be fueling inflammation in our bodies. Again, stress can fuel inflammation, lack of sleep, dehydration, emotional eating, a lot of negative thinking. Louise L. Hay talks about inflamed thinking and anger. Anger and inflammation are very tied together. Or you may notice you get really stressed out, and if you have any current symptoms, that they flare up when you're more stressed. So maybe your headaches get worse. Maybe any pain in your hands or toes or, legs gets worse. Maybe old injuries flare up. Like it's so fascinating. I really believe in the mental, emotional, physical connection as well as the energetic and spiritual. But whatever your beliefs are based on, I think it's so important for us to open up so that it's not just physical and it's not just like bad luck that you ended up with these symptoms. Like everything is so connected, but it's empowering because then you can make changes if you're open to it. So another contributor to this poor gut health is either like infection. So if you've had different bacteria or viruses that can contribute, so you want to deal with that if you've, gone traveling or eaten something, but also can be associated with, bacterial overgrowth. So candida, yeast, gut flora imbalances. We have a microbiome, which consists of like hundreds of different kinds of bacteria, like 8 pounds plus of bacteria apparently reside in our large intestine alone. Like that is significant. When we have a healthy balance, it is important for us for production of some vitamins, especially B vitamins, which are the energy and anti-stress vitamins. It helps us, again, move our bowels through properly. It helps us, with our mood and our energy levels and hormone production. This gut flora is very complex and it is a very vital part of our optimal health. And if you've had to take antibiotics, if you eat sugar, if you eat foods, with yeast in them, drink alcohol, have high stress, we are far more likely to have the unhealthy bacteria or candida take over the good bacteria. And then what ends up happening is when we have more poor bacteria, you're far more likely to have more digestive symptoms, lower mood, brain fog, low sex drive, more PMS or menopausal symptoms, abdominal puffing or bloating. You may find it's easier to gain weight and more difficult to lose weight. You may have more sugar and carb cravings. You may find you're becoming just more and more sensitive to more foods. And so it may be some of this gut flora stuff and just overall like that your digestive system is in a heightened state of stress. We actually have to go in and deal with each aspect of this rather than just going, oh yeah, you have this and you just need to like be on this diet. So food is one aspect, but until we actually understand what are the root causes, I don't think just like slapping a certain diet on is the approach that's going to get you to the root causes and help you address those and overcome them to become symptom-free and or have only like very little symptom once in a while. And that is with anything like this, or if you've already have been diagnosed with Crohn's or colitis or any kind of inflammatory bowel issues, I still believe symptoms can be managed if we strengthen and balance the digestive organs and the hormones and your stress levels and build a healthy relationship with food, because a lot of these symptoms are fueled by your behaviors and the stress. So if we can address those, often I find any clients that have had any other digestive diagnoses like that, their symptoms improve a lot, if not go away. So, and then they notice if they get more stressed or they're not taking the time for themselves, the symptoms may flare up. So I wanted to just share a little bit of some of the key aspects of gut health that can be impacted, but that there's actually things we can do to go in and balance this stuff out. So what if you've been told you have IBS and that you'll have to deal with it for life? I really don't believe it. Again, it's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. But I believe in let's dig to the roots. Why are you having these symptoms? What's going on with your digestion, your hormones? What kind of relationship with food do you have? What kind of relationship with your body do you have? How are you currently eating? What are your stress levels like? What kind of thoughts do you think on a regular basis? What kind of people are you surrounding yourself with? I'm proof, and I witness my clients as well making miraculous changes with their digestive systems as we address the physical, mental, emotional parts of this. And I believe if we can go in and work on the digestive organs and support them, we can strengthen the digestive system as a whole and resolve symptoms altogether without restrictive diets that can feel difficult to maintain or unrealistic, especially during holidays, vacations, travel, or social settings. You have no idea how many people have come to me after seeing a healthcare practitioner. And I have all the respect in the world for everyone out there sharing their gifts and wanting to help other people. Unfortunately, though, if we don't connect to or understand someone's relationship with food and you do a food sensitivity test and then the practitioner is going, well, you have to cut out these 20 foods or you're not going to get better, or you have to go on this restrictive diet or you're not going to get better. But then you keep failing on the diet because you keep binging or emotionally eating and rebelling because it's restricting you and you're just feeling like, oh, my symptoms won't go away. I just think that we need to understand the relationship with food and there's other ways to address the symptoms rather than just doing the one way, well, you just have to cut stuff out. Cutting stuff out in some cases may help. And I'm all about replacing that with alternatives. But I don't think that it's realistic or fair to say to someone, you have to cut out like 20 things and just adapt. Like our relationship with food and food prep is such a big part of us, until all of a sudden have to cut a bunch of stuff out and not have the support and the guidance on how to handle that physically, mentally, and emotionally can have a significant impact on your mood and everything going on in your life. So I know for me, when I work with someone, I guide them if there's anything we have to change with food. And I'm always recommending recipes and alternative things because I don't want that person to feel deprived or restricted. And people don't, which is awesome. The No Sugarcoating Podcast is proud to partner with Prairie Naturals, featuring their range of exceptional salon quality formulas made with love in the beautiful Okanagan Valley. Prairie Naturals has been helping create beautiful, healthy hair naturally since the early 1990s. They are leaders in natural hair care products in the Canadian marketplace. As a family-owned and operated business, health and environmental responsibility has been a primary focus. With more than 40 products, Prairie Naturals hair care line has proudly created products to support individual hair needs. We especially love the new Collagen Care formula and the WildRose styling serum. Prairie Naturals hair care products contain no SLS, parabens, phthalates, MEA, DEA, TEA, xenoestrogens, propylene glycol, synthetic colors, artificial fragrances, or mineral oil. All of the formulas are non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, cruelty-free, which means no animal testing. You can learn more and shop at www.prairienaturals.ca. So, dealing with digestive sensitivities. As I mentioned earlier, one of the comments that was left was I reduced wheat and dairy and added more veggies and I'm still bloating. So I want you to grab a piece of paper and answer these questions, because if you're answering yes, or I have a lot of stress, or, I'm struggling with the different things that you're talking about, then there's a good likelihood that there's, quite a few other potential unknowns that have not been identified for you yet. If you've reduce wheat and dairy, which are two of the most common food allergens in the world, and you're adding more veggies and you're still having digestive symptoms. So a lot of people are advised to cut out foods, or they get a food sensitivity test done and are told to cut out all the ones that are giving any kind of a reaction. So food adjustments can reduce symptoms, but as I've mentioned, for a lot of people, it doesn't allow you to get to the roots as to why you are so sensitive in the first place. So here's some questions for you to answer. How long ago did your digestive symptoms start? Do you get bloating, cramping, diarrhea, constipation? Do you have a lot of gas? Do you have daily bowel movements, or are they every other day? And as an aside, if I'm going too fast, feel free to pause it if you want to take some time to answer these questions more thoroughly, or you can always listen again. What are your stress levels? So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low and 10 being extremely high, where would you rate yourself? When you eat, do you eat mindfully at the table without distraction of TV, technology, phones, etc.? Or do you eat while you work, drive and eat, multitask and eat? You're watching TV and eating, because that will have a significant impact on the way you're digesting, no matter how much you've cut out and you're trying to add more good foods in. Do you eat quickly? Do you struggle with emotional eating? And again, emotional eating is any reason for eating other than physical nourishment. Have you ever struggled with restriction and or overeating and or dieting? Because when your digestive system is already irritated or inflamed, you get symptoms like bloating. The bloating is a sign of internal inflammation, likely in the intestinal lining, and it's very sensitive. The intestinal lining is sensitive yet very strong, but the more stress that we put on it by some of the things I've mentioned above, poor breakdown of food, too many refined foods, prescription drugs, alcohol, hormone imbalances, emotional eating, other stressors, the more sensitive our gut can get. And so at this point, if you have multiple other stressors going on, just cutting out certain foods and adding more veggies is likely not going to help you resolve your symptoms. And when your digestive system is already sensitive and you're experiencing, the bloating, often adding more vegetables, especially raw vegetables, which are highly fibrous, usually will irritate the intestinal lining more because it takes more energy to break them down than if they were cooked. Same with more vegetarian or vegan-based eating. I'm not opposed to it, but if you have super sensitive digestion, adding in more raw or plant-based foods may actually irritate your system. So it's important to balance digestion and see if more plant-based is actually right for you, because everyone is different. But often, the fiber agitates and flares up the intestinal lining more, and you feel more bloated, which can naturally just leave you feeling very frustrated because you're trying to add more good things into your eating and to help your symptoms go away, but it's not going away. And it's often not just food that needs to change, and it's to really understand your current state of health, which brings me to my third point, which is getting to the root of your digestive issues. So it's important that we understand the current state of health of our digestive organs. So digestion starts in the mouth, as I was mentioning earlier. Do you have too low of stomach acid? Do you get acid reflux, heartburn? That we need to understand the health of your small and large intestines. Are you absorbing properly? Do you have proper gut flora health, or do you have too much unhealthy candida or yeast? Is your liver not detoxifying properly? Do you have your gallbladder, and is your gallbladder functioning properly? Is your pancreas functioning properly and producing your enzymes, which your enzymes break down your food? Hormones also play a role in digestive health. So I often find them more sensitive someone's digestion if, there's cortisol imbalances, too low or too high of cortisol. Your digestion can feel more sensitive and you may get bloated more easily. Of course, inflammation usually starts in the gut and can get worse, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're bloated. Inflammation could look like eczema or skin reactions and rashes. It could look like water retention, inflammation, feeling warm, feeling puffy. And of course, bloating is another potential sign of inflammation. I think our relationship with food plays a huge role in our digestive health. So if you do struggle with emotional eating, if you're always eating on the run, if you're never taking time to slow down and eat your food slowly without distraction, if you're always eating processed foods, or you're always hopping from fad diet to try to find the right thing to fix you or to lose weight, this can all have significant stress on the digestive system. So we actually need to learn how to build a healthy relationship with food, which is balanced between mindful eating, mindful indulgence, and nourishing our body with foods to support our health. I also believe our mindset and emotions play a huge role in our digestive health and our overall health. We process and store a lot of our guilt, anger, frustration, irritation, worry, and fear in the digestive region. So if you take a more emotional and energetic look at our health, this is very connected. This is also the solar plexus area, if we're talking about chakras. But if you notice you feel certain emotions and then you get a pain or a bloating or a tightness in your abdominal region, it very much could be that those emotions are being experienced in that area. So stress and overbooked schedules and our mindsets are non-food related things that play a huge role in the way we behave with our relationship with food. And of course, our physical symptoms. And I often find it's not just about changing the way you're eating. It's about your lifestyle, your schedule, your mindset, your relationship with your body, with food, with weight. Are you a perfectionist? Do you have a people-pleasing mentality, right? Are you always feeling stressed or overwhelmed or like you need to give? Like this all puts your body into a heightened state of stress, which at some point does have an impact on hormones and digestion. So when you're getting to the root of your digestive issues, I think it's important to go through the questions above. And if you feel like you've tried lots of different diets, if you've tried, food elimination and it hasn't worked, like there's deeper explanation, there's deeper things to explore, get support, reach out to somebody who you feel really is well versed in this and can dig with you and help you get to the root causes rather than just throwing you another restrictive diet or another, just something that can give you answers, but it's just, you don't feel like it is the core cause. You can email me at info@amberapproved.ca or go to my website at amberapproved.ca and book your 30-minute complimentary body freedom call. We can talk about your digestive issues, right? Your stress, hormones, relationship with food. And the key is to address all these different areas so that you can understand what's fueling your symptoms and how to then resolve them. You will have a better understanding of what you need to do, because you may not actually have to cut much out or go on a restrictive diet. It may be more like about managing your schedule or mindful eating, or maybe you need to balance your gut flora, but you won't know those specifics until you are thoroughly assessed. Don't feel like you have to restrict. This can fuel rebellion, especially for anyone who has an emotional eating, binge eating tendency. It can fuel overeating and then have you feeling like you messed up. And that can just make the symptoms worse. Learn how to manage your stress. Put some self-care time into your schedule. Bring in practices of mindful eating, like start with one meal a day that you're going to pick, that you're going to shut off all technology. You're going to make sure you just sit and eat your food. Having conversation with others is fine unless you're having a very negative interaction, but focus on being present with chewing your food properly. A probiotic is always great. I always suggest something with at least, 20 billion plus per capsule and something with at least 10 strains. But then it gets more specific to each individual and depending on your current state of health. Sleep is important. Hydration is important. Addressing inflammation and calming that down. Like there's so many aspects of this and there's so many layers. So again, if you've tried a diet or you've tried adding certain things in for food and cutting things out and you're still getting symptoms, I encourage you to not get too frustrated because there's probably other underlying layers here that have not been addressed yet. That by, taking some time to answer some questions and further reflect here, maybe you will have a better understanding and awareness for what you need and what action steps you want to take, whether they're on your own or by seeking out the support of someone who can really guide you on this journey. So I hope that helps to answer some of your questions today. And I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. The show notes again can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/220. If you have questions, feedback, podcast topic ideas, you can send them to info@amberapproved.ca. Be sure to also go to amberapproved.ca and take the emotional eating quiz. You can click the link in the show notes. And again, make sure to enter the worldwide giveaway, which is a $150 gift card to your favorite spa in your town or city. How do you do that? Well, either by leaving a review on your favorite podcast app and then emailing me at info@amberapproved.ca to share the name and the country you left the review under. Or you can also share the podcast in your Instagram stories or a post tagging me, which is my name, of course, on Instagram is my name, Amber Romaniuk, Romaniuk. And again, you'll email me just to let me know if I'm sure I will see it though with the tag. And just a friendly reminder, if you're leaving a review, you do so on your phone or computer by searching for the No Sugarcoating Podcast. Even if you're subscribed to me, you will need to find the show in this way. Once you're on my main page, you can click on reviews and write a review in purple. Give me 5 stars if you like, write a little something, or you can go to amberapproved.ca/review and it will take you to the page so you can follow the steps that I've just shared. Have a beautiful day, a great week, and remember there is no better time than the present to take action on your health, my friends, and your digestion, so take action now. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, review, and rate this podcast and share it with your friends. You can find me at amberapproved.ca and follow me on Instagram and YouTube at Amber Romaniuk. Join me next Sunday for another brand new episode and another step toward body freedom.